Hey everyone, I'm Dan from Third Space, and today we're going to go through a movement practice together. We're going to break down today's practice into 3 parts. We're going to move, play, and connect. So think of move as our warm-up piece. We're just going to get the body warmed up, ready to go, so we can focus on the next part, our play. Play is going to be like our skill work. We're going to take a couple individual skills and we're just going to spend a little bit of time practicing and refining them. In the last portion, connect, we're going to take the opportunity to kind of throw everything that we were playing with together. So we'll have a little bit of time to improvise and just play around a little bit. So if you're ready, let's get started. All right, gang, here we go. Feel free to follow along with me. Also, if you need to take a break, go ahead, listen to your body, take a break when you need to. And we're just going to get started. So we're just going to hold on to our shins, get ourselves into a nice kind of little tuck position, and we're just going to roll backwards a couple times. So just starting to rock ourselves, stay in a nice tight little shape, trying to make this as smooth as possible. We're going to keep rocking. But this time when we come up to our seated position, we're actually going to change and bring our hips forward. So I have one knee going out to the side, opposite knee still tracking forward, and that heel's on the ground. So when I sit up, I'm going to sit nice and tall. We're going to roll backwards again, and then this time we're going to switch our feet. So I'm going to come up on the opposite side. So here you can see that I'm actually flat with that back foot and I'm sat right on top of it as well. Again, open up at that 90 with both those knees. I can plant my hands, roll those shoulders back, make sure I'm keeping that back nice and flat, open up that chest. Notice I really bring the hips forward. Perfect. So we're gonna go back onto our backs. We're gonna pull our heels close to our butt. We're gonna think glute bridge. So feet are hip width apart. I'm going to drive through the heels, bring my hips up into the air. But now what we're going to think about doing is actually reaching across with our opposite hand. So I'm going to reach overhead and across. Just come back down, reset. Opposite hand reaches across the body again. So you'll notice that my head stays off the ground. Once I'm elevated onto my shoulder. I can think of turning my ear towards the mat. But I'm not rolling onto my head. Rolling onto my shoulder. Big reach. Reset. And let's roll ourselves back up. We're just going to stay nice and low and come into our low squat position. So our feet are hip width apart. Heels should be down onto the floor. So if you're having trouble with that, you can take a block, roll up a little blanket, just something to prop those heels up. Knees are going to be tracking to the outside, but we're going to help ourselves out a little bit by bringing our elbows to the inside of our thighs. It's kind of like we're blocking them. I can use my hands again to kind of form that little wedge. We're just going to hang out down here. Just going to breathe, see if we can relax into those hips a little bit. So I have a little bit of a prying action out. I'm not really forcing it too hard, just enough to just help, again, open up those hips a little bit. If you feel like it, you can rock side to side, get into those ankles a little bit more. So I'll go over to the side, still watching that that heel stays nice and heavy into the floor. So hopefully you're all right here. We're gonna spend a couple more minutes just down into this position. But now what I'm gonna do is get back into that nice big kind of side body reach. What I'm gonna do here is I'm going to place one hand behind. I'm gonna bring my opposite knee down into the center and reach with that same side. So I'll reset back into that squat position, opposite side. So I'm really trying to think, open up right along this line, all the way through the side body. Good, and we'll reset back into that squat. Almost done in this position. Next, what we're gonna do, we're gonna keep one elbow to the inside of our thigh. I can plant that same side hand, and we're just gonna turn away from it. So I'm gonna rotate, and again, reach and open up, opposite side. And if you need to, we come up to our feet, shake those legs out a little bit, roll those ankles out. The next couple movements that we're gonna do is again, back onto our mat. And it'll be a few different movements kind of layered on. So we'll start with one and then we'll add the next piece, one piece at a time. So first thing that we're gonna do here, keep those knees, again, at that 90. And this is kind of our little transition position. What we're gonna do is just let the knees fall to one side. So if I need to, I can have those hands behind again to keep that chest up. And I just let the knees fall one side and we'll windshield wipe them over to the other side. So just nice and relaxed, letting those hips drop, rotate. So as you're doing this, see if you can start to bring yourself a little bit more forward and to help yourself a little bit less with those hands. Maybe see if you can get to the point where you don't need those hands at all. And you're just using that control, strength through the hips. So that's our first movement, our little hip switch. Now what we're gonna do, once my knees fall to the side, is I'm actually going to extend my hips forward. So I'm gonna come into a kneeling position on both knees. Hips come back, we're gonna switch, and then again, tall kneeling position. Notice that when I come back, I can use those hands to kind of counterbalance my weight going back. And I really bring my hips close to the ground. Try to get myself all the way down. Then I can make a nice soft landing. So next element we're gonna add on to this, once I get to that kneeling position, I'm just gonna take my back leg, I'm going to take it around to the front. So now I kind of turn to this 90 and I end up into a nice little lunge position. We're gonna come back the exact same way. That front leg now is gonna sweep back. I'm still in my kneeling position. Hips come back, and we're gonna switch our hips. Hip switch. Extend up to our kneeling position, back leg swings. Here. Back leg, front leg swings back into our kneeling position, and switch. You can always add a nice little reaching motion. As I come up into my lunge, reach, leg swings back. Last one. Let's do one more for good measure. Leg swings back. And nice and soft back to the ground. Right on. So let's take a little bit of time to warm up for our next portion. We're going to get into some crawling ground-based movements. So we'll get into a tabletop position and just warm up those wrists a little bit before we get going. So for my tabletop position, shoulders are going to be right over top of those hands, shoulder width apart, and then we're just going to start to circle in one direction, shoulders around the hands, trying to keep the palms down onto the floor, fingers spread, nice active hands. And then from here, we'll reverse that circle, nice and smooth. And then we'll find ourselves back into our center position. So from here, knees are still on the ground, but what we're going to do is we're going to hover. And we're going to hover our opposite hand and our opposite knee. So my right hand's going to come off the ground, and my left knee raises up. I'm going to hover for a sec, replace, and alternate to the opposite side. So while I'm doing this, I'm trying to keep my shoulders and my hips square, and just a nice long, flat back. We're going to reset here, and then starting at the back of our mat, we're going to use that same pattern, opposite hand, opposite knee. We're just going to come to the top of our mat. So I'm creeping up to the top. Once I get to the top, I'll pause, and then I'll use that same motion to move myself back. One more time. So now from here, we're going to challenge that a little bit more. Let's tuck those toes and let's bring the knees about 1 inch off the ground. So from here, we're going to alternate our hover. It's going to be a little bit more challenging, a little harder to keep those hips from wanting to shift and tilt. See if you can fight for that control, that stability. Now from here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to walk ourselves to the top of the mat, and then reverse. So take your time with this. Nice small little steps work a lot better. A little bit easier to maintain that control. Good. And let's just take a second to reset here. Last one we're going to do from that crawling position. We've gone forward, we've gone back. Now we're going to go side to side. So, option here are to stay with the knees down, or I can always pop those knees off the ground again. But what we're going to think about here is, again, I'm going to move opposite side. So when my hand moves out, notice that my knees are close together, and then when I move my knee out, my hands are close. So I always have a nice stable base on one side. So we'll go all the way to one side of the mat, move our way back. And if you want that added challenge, we'll tuck those toes, and then from here, trying to maintain that nice stable position. Right on. So that's a nice little primer for our crawling movements. We learned how to crawl in all 4 directions. Now let's see how we can start to change this up a little bit and move from one crawling position to another. So we're going to look at our front crawl, which we've been working on, and how we can switch that into a crab crawl, or basically a reverse tabletop. So in this position. So let's start to learn that transition. This is what we're going to play around with today. For our first transition, we're actually going to work a move called a sit out. So it's going to start from our crawl position that we've been working, basically that tabletop. Again, let's keep those knees in nice and close so they're not too far away. We want them at least right underneath the hips. We're still thinking about that stability by opposite base. So opposite hand, opposite foot are always going to be touching the ground at the same time. So that means if I take my right foot off, my left hand can come off, and I have that stability cross body like this. So we're going to use this, kind of like this, making a little window here, and that free leg, it's going to kick through that window. I'm going to kick it straight out to the side, here. If I need to, I can rest that leg down on the ground. I can also keep the leg bent for now, if it makes it a little bit easier. But eventually what we want to get to is that leg hovering off the ground like this. I'm going to step back through that window that we made, reset with my crawl position, go to the opposite side, and foot come off, and shoot the leg through, pivot, and come back. So don't feel a need to rush through this. See if you can make this nice and controlled all the way through the movement. Once you do get it, you can kind of feel that little rhythm to it. You can start to speed it up a little bit. And we'll reset. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is use this to come from our crawl position, kick that leg through. We're going to keep pivoting with it until that leg and that foot finds the ground, and I end up in my crab position. I can also choose to extend into that reverse tabletop, drop the hips, the leg comes back through. So you can always break it down into that sit out, plant the foot, tabletop, or see if you can go right through as you shoot that foot through, right into your crab, reverse tabletop. Last one. Perfect. So now we have the beginning of that transition, being able to link 2 movements together. The next 2 movements that we're going to do involve a different crawling pattern. So we're going to do the monkey crawl. So we've been going forward and back. Now again, let's take a look at going from side to side. So in our monkey position, we're back into that nice low squat that we started with. This time I'm going to go out to the side, and I want to think about reaching with my hands first. So I'm going to reach my hands all the way across my body. When my hands plant, I start to put the weight into my shoulders, and I'm just thinking about bringing my feet behind my hands again. I want to land in that nice squat position as well. So take that time to reset. Again, make sure that those heels can be comfortably down onto the ground. Knees are out to the side. I should be able to kind of rest and relax here. So I'll reset, and I'm going to come back the opposite way. So I'm going to reach across my body, plant my hands. I can hop or float the feet back behind the head. So let's do a couple out to one side. And then back. So when I do this, I kind of think like somebody's watching me. I want to try to make this movement look as nice as possible. So I'm trying to minimize the sound I make, no heavy landings. But for now, if you start off, you just need to hop, and that's what gets you there, that's perfectly fine. One more. So we have our little monkey pattern. Let's add that together with our sit through. So we just did our monkey crawl side to side. Now let's see if we can add a move that we were just working on, our sit out, into that same movement. So as I come across, what I'm gonna do, instead of hopping and landing on both feet, I'm going to land with my outside foot and then just shoot that leg through, just like we did in that sit up right away. And then I can reset. So here, leg comes through, reset. So you'll notice it's that outside leg, that trail leg's the one that shoots through, and then I just bring it back to reset. Here. Let's add one more little element to this. So we have the option of coming through. As I shoot that leg through, I'm gonna get myself nice and close to the ground. So I'm gonna think ear down towards the ground, and then back up. Reset. If I need to assist myself, I can let that leg rest onto the ground, take some of that weight as I try to press myself back up. I can rest the leg, ear to the ground, back up. So let's make that flow a little bit better. This time we're going to do one monkey crawl, and then on the second one, that's when we're gonna do our sit out move. So crawl, second one. So a nice little way to start to add some movements together. Basically, we looked at that transition and adding in that monkey. Now we have a whole bunch of different ways that we can move in and out of just 2 or 3 positions. Okay, so we've gone through our first 2 pieces of our movement practice. Gone through our move, got a nice little warm up. We played with a few different positions, our transition, and the monkey crawl. Now we're gonna try to connect all those together. So this is kind of like a little free-form practice. We're gonna do 40 seconds of movement, and we're gonna take a nice little 20-second break. And we're gonna do that 2 times. So the objective here is to just keep moving. We're going to work through our crawl movements, our transitions, and see if we can start to link some stuff together. There's no right or wrong way to do this. The idea is just to keep moving. So you haven't messed up, you haven't done anything wrong. The idea though is to just not stop. Okay, so we'll do our first round. Just have fun with it, and here we go. In 3, 2, 1. So I might just start off with my simple crawl positions, front to back, side to side. I can start to mix it up a little bit. I might do a nice little kick out to my crab. Doesn't have to be complicated. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. And go ahead and rest. So while we're taking this little break, let's take a look at a couple different ways that we can play with these movements without really changing them too much. So two things that I can work on are speed, or the tempo, and also what I just call level changing. So if I'm doing that monkey and I come to the side, I can play down here where I keep those hips nice and low. I can also think about bringing those hips nice and high as I come through. And I might start to mix and match those a little bit, high to low. I can also play with speed. So I can come nice and smooth, nice and quick through this monkey, and then I can see if I can start to change that tempo and movement and show a little bit more control as I'm moving through. Okay, so a couple more things you guys can think about, and we're gonna get into our last round in 3, 2, 1, and go ahead and move. Five seconds, 3, 2, and 1. Right on. So, nice little way to think about how we practice. Our practice can be focused, but it also can be really fun. We can kind of just take a couple moves, set a timer, work on them for a little bit, and not really take ourselves too seriously. So now that we're done all that, let's just take a couple seconds and we'll just take one hand. We're just gonna place it on the chest, the other one on the belly, and we're just gonna start to slow that breathing down. So 40 seconds of work. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it definitely gets the blood going, the sweat going, and that heart rate elevated a little bit. We're just gonna take a little bit of time, kind of find what that breath's doing, and just see if we can start to bring it back down. Right on. So, thanks for joining me in this little movement practice. We have a lot more coming from third space, so look forward to seeing you in the next video.